to be afraid to take risk out of fear of falling on our behinds, right? But when you fall on your behind from that place, it's easy to get back on your feet because from that place, your feet are in close proximity to your behind, right? So let's dive a bit deeper into this. So I was sitting here, getting my day going, and I was, I I keep having these like flashes, right, of insight, flashes of like a movie scene, right? That like how people say like I just saw my life flash before my eyes, and it's like, sped up scenes of different places, different times, different situations. Like it kind of felt like that, but really, really quick, right? And it was basically like flashes of, you know, taking sort of risks, right? And being so afraid, but then also finally allowing myself to see myself on the other side of, if I took a risk or if I did something that felt really big and crazy, like how I would feel on the other side of that, like just watching myself cry and sob and just like, oh my God, I was so scared, but being so grateful, like being tears of gratitude, right? That I allowed myself to take the risk and prove to myself that I will always land on my feet, even if I don't. And that's where this came in, right? It was the idea of, even if I don't land on my feet, like that was like it was my way of allowing myself in the moment to work through my fears. Like, what is scaring you so fucking much, Jazz? What is making you so fucking afraid to, take these risks that feel big to my ego, right? But they're really fucking not. Like, you really think it's really not, like going live. It's not that big of a fucking deal. But to my ego, it's like, what do you mean? And so that's where it was like, okay, well, work through it then, right? What are you so afraid? Okay, well, I'm afraid that I'll fall on my ass. Like, I'm afraid, like metaphorically speaking, I will fall on my behind. Okay. That was beyond, it was like, I'll land on my feet. That was me telling myself, like, that's the fear, right? I'll fall on my behind. Okay, well, cool. I can also decide that I will always land on my feet as well, right? But even in the event that I don't, even in the event that I don't land on my feet from that place are still in close enough proximity to be able to easily get back on my feet, right? And pick myself up, dust myself off, and keep going, right? So that is Spirit's encouragement today. Allow yourself to, when you have these thoughts, like when your soul is pulling you to make decisions, to do something big, to do something huge, to do something that feels really fucking scary, only not because there's actual danger, but because it's simply so fucking new and unfamiliar, which creates discomfort in your nervous system, right? So it's like when you allow yourself to realize that that's where this shit is really stemming from, there's really actually no real danger in sight for real. It's literally your nervous system's way of preparing you for for the unexpected, so to speak. So when you allow yourself to work through those thoughts and allow yourself to really ask, like, okay, but is there real danger here, right? I want to do this thing, I want to take this risk, I want to put myself out there in this big way, right? It feels big for you, right? It feels big for you personally. I want to put myself out there in this big way. I want to launch this product. I really want to write this book, whatever the thing is, right? um Allow yourself to work through the worst case scenario. So what is the worst thing that could happen? You completely fail, right? We completely fall on our behind, we completely fall on our ass. And then what happens after that? Your feet are already near your behind, right? Like if you really fell on the ground, like where I'm at, sitting on the floor, right, with my legs crossed, my feet are in close enough proximity to my ass cheeks, right, to where I can easily, right, no hands, I can easily rise 444 on the timer. Okay. So I'm saying that to say, allow yourself to work through the thoughts, work through the limitations that your ego will, rightfully so, try to give you in order to stop your progress. It's doing its job. It's literally doing its job. Our ego's job, which is connected to our mind, right? Our body, our vessel in this lifetime, it's doing its job in protecting us. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay. It deems things that are new and unfamiliar as dangerous, even if it's really actually not, right? And that's where discernment comes in. So that's where we have to discern, is there actual danger here, or is it just something that is really new and super uncomfortable and unfamiliar to me that I should still pursue, right? Because it's that's where your growth lies, right? That's where the magic is, on the other side of doing the thing that is uncomfortable, that, you know, feels scary in the moment, until you actually do it and you realize, like, holy fuck, that was the best thing I ever did, right? So when you work through these thoughts, though, to realize, like, oh shit, there's really nothing to actually be afraid of with this. This is just my brain's way of putting out every fucking stop it can to slow me down, to keep me from taking the risk, because ultimately it thinks that it's in danger. And so then it's up to us to show ourselves, right? To show the little kid inside of us that we're good, right? Like the same way a toddler is learning how to walk and they're about to step off the curb for the first time. You see what I'm saying? It's like, that's a big deal. That's a big step, right? Because it feels like that to them. It's so new to them. It's so unfamiliar. It's very unfamiliar territory to a toddler, right? But when you allow yourself to realize and understand that we still, as adults, right, in these, you know, adult bodies, I should say, a lot of us are still toddlers in this life. There's still a lot of shit that we are still discovering, a lot of stuff we're still learning, and, you know, learning how to express ourselves, learning how to process information, learning how to, you know, comprehend things, right? Putting meaning to things, right? As well as removing meaning from things, changing the meaning of things. Like there's so many layers, and it's so complex. So it's like allowing yourself to realize and remember that, you know, for some of us, I think all of us, it's a remembering, but what I mean is a conscious remembering. Okay. For some people, consciously, it's a new idea, it's a new concept, right? But ultimately, it's a collective remembering, right? That we are exactly where we need to be, right? But even in the event that you're not, right, you still have the ultimate ability to get yourself where you feel or where you need to be. Get yourself back on track, back into alignment, by, metaphorically speaking, getting yourself off the ground and back on your feet. You are more than capable and able of doing that for yourself. No one is going to do that for us. It's not meant to be that way, right? So when we allow ourselves to come to that acceptance, right, by way of working through these thoughts, letting the fears, letting yourself really talk yourself through that. What is really scaring you? You know, treat yourself like you're talking to a best friend or talking to a kid, right? And you're really coaching them, like, what is scaring you the most about this right now? What is really, you know, worrying you or concerning you about this, right? And really sit with that. And that's where this came for me, where I was just like, damn, there really isn't anything to be afraid of, but it's just the idea of, if I follow my behind, how much longer it's going to take for me to get back up, how much difficult is it going to take for me to get back on track. That's my limitation, right? That was the limitation that came up for me, that channeled this whole crown load, okay? Where I was just like, oh, so that was the limitation for me. That was my soul revealing to me the root, right? The root cause of that limiting belief that's affecting, you know, trickling down in other ways, right? As changing form as it goes. It's kind of like the same as that telephone game from the 90s. If you know, you know, as a millennial, okay, that's what we used to call telephone game. And by the time, and what you notice is, it's where you pass a message, right? You pass a message to a person. It's like a group of people, like a group of, let's say, 5 or 6 people, right? And you would, you know, be like, girl, and, you know, act like you're telling someone, like gossiping, right? And you tell the next person, you whisper to them what that last person told you, or, you know what I'm saying? Like the person starts it, and then they pass the message, and they act like they're on the phone, you know, telling their best friend or whatever, the tea, and it passes, and each person passes on what they heard the last person say. The thing with this is, though, is by the time it gets back to the originator, that story has changed, most times at least when that game was played. That when I, at least from my observation, the story had changed so much, the message had changed so much by the time it got back to its originator. it wasn't even funny. It was like, where the fuck did you get that from? How did you hear that? And it just goes to show you how not only different people receive information differently, but it also shows that we're all technically living on different timelines, not crazily different to where we can experience each other and interact with each other, not that vastly different, right? But different enough to be able to observe that, oh, they're experiencing this experience in that way, while I'm experiencing it in a different way. This one situation, this one scenario, they're experiencing it in one way based on their level of awareness and comprehension, and I'm experiencing it in a different way, a slightly different way, right? It doesn't mean either one is wrong. They're just variations of each other, right? So allow yourself to, like I said, when you work through your fears about why you don't want to do something, why you don't want to take a risk, allow yourself to really ask, find out and dig deep to see, is this really something to be fucking afraid of? Or is this a conditioning that wants me to stay small? Is it my own brain's own way, 11:11 on the timer, is this my brain's own way of trying to protect me, of trying to keep me safe, of trying to ensure that the shit that we experienced before, that we don't put ourselves in a position to go through again, right? And it's valid. That's the thing, it's valid. It's all valid. But if you want to actually live this life to its fullest, do your best to reach your fullest potential, right? It's going to require risk. It's going to require us to prove to ourselves that, yes, even if I do fall in my behind, I can get back up, and it won't be nearly as hard as I thought it would. Why? Because from that place, like I was saying, the ease and proximity, right? From that place of my feet being so close to my behind, it won't be hard for me to get up. It won't be hard for me to start again. So let that concept, that thought process right there be a driving force of motivation or inspiration for you to take the risk, to do the thing, to put yourself out there, to launch the product, whatever the fuck it is, do it. Do it. And I'm talking to myself. I'm taking my own motherfucking advice. Okay? I am. Seriously. But yeah. Yeah. You have what it takes. You have everything you need. And it won't be nearly as hard if you did have to start over, because you're not starting over from scratch. You're starting over from experience. Getting back on your feet won't be nearly as difficult as your ego wants you to think it is or would be. So, anywho, you're loved. Stay hydrated. Have a great fucking day on purpose. Outie.